Welcome to Buddha Dieu. Fight for freedom, freedom of the body, the mind and the soul, to set your spirit free. I am Soki Daryl Orick. Welcome. In this presentation, we will look at some aspects and discuss true love and intimacy. As the Chinese Taoist master and founder, Lao Tzu would call it angelic intercourse. What Master Lao Tzu was talking about is the highest realm of interaction with one's spirit. Have you ever wondered why priests, monks, or various groups, and some individuals choose celibacy? It is not so much that as many profess to believe that only through non-contact with a woman that some sort of enlightenment or nirvana may be achieved. But it was long known that after intimacy a person is left feeling depleted of one's strength and spirit. Hence, it was and still is believed in many circles that celibacy was and is a sure path towards enlightenment. Today, there are several teachings that speak of and teach controlled interaction between a couple. They say this controlled intimacy can lead to enlightenment and a greater love between a couple that practice such teachings. There is a lot of truth to this belief. To understand celibacy, controlled interaction between a couple, and further to understand how we can achieve a greater love, let's look at the physical or chemical interactions within us. We need to understand that our body is full of various chemicals and hormones that may lead us to a greater love, enlightenment or nirvana. But they may also lead us to a perpetual wandering in dissatisfaction and self-destruction. Let's look at some of these wondrous hormones and chemicals in our body. Dopamine. We have no doubt all heard about dopamine. Dopamine is sometimes referred to as the feel-good chemical. Some recreational drugs heighten the supply of dopamine. Dopamine floods our brain and makes us feel good. It's no wonder why so many people opt for recreational drugs. But there is a danger to using recreational drugs. In time and after every use of a recreational drug, the brain's normal dopamine producing capability is degraded. This is why users of recreational drugs need a higher boost or more drugs every time in order to maintain a high enough dose of dopamine to get a high or to feel good. Recreational drugs have a detrimental and permanent degradation of the normal and healthy brain function. Apart from a feel-good effect of dopamine, dopamine is also responsible for sexual arousal. Users of recreational drugs would know that after taking recreational drugs, they are more sexually aroused. Partners of drug addicts would also experience a sudden change in sexual behavior of their partners. All of this is attributed mainly to dopamine. With perpetual recreational drug users, it becomes more of a case of having sex with the drug and not the person. In normal circumstances, naturally produced dopamine is an arousal for sexual activity. It is also important to mention oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes referred to as the female orgasmic elixir. Oxytocin acts as a bonding chemical, bonding not in the sense of lust, but it stands behind the selfless desire to nurture and to be close to another. This is the cuddle effect in intimacy, the need to be with one, the need to be with your partner. We sometimes call it a feeling of love. You have no doubt noticed that effects of oxytocin, where you want to be close to your partner, the nurturing of children, and other expressions of closeness. While we are talking about dopamine and oxytocin, it is worthwhile mentioning that alcohol destroys dopamine. A lack of dopamine is also attributed to male courtship. This has been proven in cases where Parkinson's disease administered drugs have caused some men to suddenly feel attracted to other men. A lack of oxytocin is attributed to a lack of commitment, a lack of feeling close to a partner, a difficulty in expressing a close bond with a partner. This brings us yet to another area, the olfactory bulb. The olfactory bulb is located in the brain. It is a smell or odor detector or receptor. It is believed that the olfactory bulb is responsible not only for picking up smells, but also distinguishing them. This is where the belief of pheromones comes in. Pheromones being sexually stimulant odors, while the jury is still out deciding if pheromones do exist or if they have anything to do with arousal, to what degree, and any. What is known is that the olfactory bulb does interact with oxytocin and dopamine. Perhaps the best way to look at this is twofold. We recognize our partners or loved ones by sight, sound, and by their smell or odor. And two, we are reminded of people that we are close to or dislike by their odor and triggering of dopamine and in some cases oxytocin. The trigger is a memory trigger, such as remembering a particular type of aftershave, perfume, scented soap, or shampoo. Or in households, we also recognize odors that either make us feel good or make us feel not so good, due to our previous experiences. Whichever way we look at it, the olfactory bulb is responsible for odor recognition and triggering memory through mainly flooding our brain with dopamine. You may ask, why is it important to know the effects of dopamine, oxytocin, and the olfactory bulb? Well, the importance is to be able to recognize what is happening to us chemically, how hormones affect us. Are they steering us towards a greater love with our partners, or are they driving us apart? Perhaps a good way of explaining this is to look at the so-called Coolidge effect. It is said that the Coolidge effect is named after the 30th President of the United States of America, Calvin Coolidge. The story goes that one day the President and Mrs. Coolidge were separately shown around an experimental government farm. When Mrs. Coolidge came to a chicken yard, she noticed that the rooster was mating very frequently. She asked the attendant how often that happened and was told that the rooster mated dozens of times each day. Mrs. Coolidge said, "Tell that to the President when he comes by." Upon being told, the President asked, "Same hen every time?" They replied, "Oh no, Mr. President, a different hen every time." To which the President replied, "Tell that to Mrs. Coolidge." As such, it is arguably said that in animals, the olfactory bulb, by engaging dopamine, not only acts as a stimulant for sexual or reproduction, but acts as a memory in order to place the animal in a position of recognizing, in this case, which chicken the rooster had already mated with. He then moves on to mate with the remaining chickens. This is the Coolidge effect, coupled with the olfactory bulb and subsequently dopamine. It is a survival of the species instrument. It is also suggested that close friendships that bloom into love affairs often turn sour and end quickly because of the Coolidge effect, or more directly because of the olfactory bulb effect of recognition. Namely, these people recognize each other as friends, not lovers. Sure, this may not be the case in all relationships. Some blossom due to multiple reasons. One suggestion is that one or both of the partners may have had a lack of oxytocin or a predisposition not to form strong trusting bonds, or may have been scarred by previous relationships, hence a reluctance to bond and trust another person. But generally speaking, a friendship that blossoms into a love affair is generally doomed, as we recognize friends as friends and not intimate lovers. There are many stories of people regretting a love affair with friends. In many cases, it is seen by the people involved as a mistrust and abuse of friendship. And generally, not only the love affair fails, but also the friendship fails.